Hello, Sahdia. Thank you very, very much for joining me for this quick interview.
Thank
And
you, Sally, for having
thank
me.
you.
I'm honored to be here.
Me too. So, just to create some context for people that are watching this, I'm interviewing Sahdia today. Sahdia has completed the Naked Divorce program with myself, the coach. Was a great, willing, eager student and really, really put herself in the program and followed it step by step by step and has had some great results. And in conversation with Sahdia, we both felt that we really wanted to do this interview and just share the experience because I'm well aware, and Sahdia is also aware, that actually it can be quite scary to sign up to something like this. And so the two of us felt it would be really nice to make something for anyone else that's considering doing the program and hopefully alleviate any anxieties or fears that they've got. How does that sound, Sadia?
Perfect.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to cast your mind back now to when we first met, and in fact, even before we first met. So something called you to go Googling and searching and looking for some kind of support. I'm just wondering, can you remember what was going on in your world
Yeah,
at that point?
I remember at the time when I found the Naked Divorce course, it was just over a year that my marriage had ended, and I was trying to do a lot of work myself. And I'm quite a well-read person myself. I'm always learning, always adapting to situations, thinking, sort of looking at interviews and trying to put myself in people's situation, how to overcome certain things. And I was fine. I was going along that journey, but it came to a point. It was like a wall, and there was something I just wasn't passing, and it really kind of impacted me. And I thought, although I had some other therapists previously, and they were lovely. It was more kind of counseling. You talk to them and they'll listen to you and like, oh, don't worry. But when I was coming back from that, my counseling sessions, I still wasn't feeling that there was um, sort of bigger change or what I was looking for. So I remember one day I don't think I think at that point I probably wasn't in a good place emotionally, mentally. A lot of strain on sort of the divorce and things, and I think at that point my divorce had come through, official divorce had come through. It was a few months after that, and then I was there googling away, and I found the course, and I was going through the different therapists. I saw you, I saw Adele, saw lots of different people, and I thought to myself, these people have given testimonies and I can only try it, so and also I think what kind of helped me also was they said, if in a certain point of the course you felt it wasn't benefiting and you want to stop, you can get your money back. And I think that was kind of like a reassurance for me. And then I remember just sending you that message and said, yeah, I'm interested. And then we arranged the interview,
Yeah.
the initial sort of contact that we made. And even then, to be honest, I was kind of really apprehensive at that point, Sally. And I remember I got it confused. I thought we were going to have a phone conversation, but it wasn't. It was supposed to be the face to face. And I was rushing getting home. And at that point, I think it was such a long day at work. And I just wasn't in a good place. And I remember seeing you. And when I saw you, there was such instant relief. Like, oh my God, you were talking to me, said, don't worry, I'm going to help and we'll get through this together and all of that. But even at that point, Sally, I just thought, really, is it going to happen? And I remember asking you, is it going to work, Sally? Is it going to work? And you're like, yes, it's going to work. And then even at that point, you think, okay, just, because it's the frame of mind at that point, how I was feeling. So it's quite negative and all of that. But I genuinely have said this to so many people. It was one of the most amazing investments of my life. Genuinely, with hand on my heart, it completely transformed me, even outside, not just my divorce, but as a person.
Mm.
And it's something that I often revisit and think, if it wasn't for me that Googling that night, whatever it was, I'm just so glad.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Could you talk a little bit more, Sandra? I'm quite interested in what you just said there about it. It actually had the effect was a bit more far-reaching than only healing from the divorce. Are you able to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah,
How did that
absolutely.
show up for you?
I think what it also was is it went a bit deeper than the marriage. It went back into my childhood as well. So when we start exploring sort of my inner child work, I realized there were lots of um, unhealed wounds from my childhood, which then meant there was a knock-on effect on the choices that I made in my life. And I think what I found previously, sorry, just going back to my other therapist, it was just the divorce we were looking at. What happened? What went wrong? What did you do? What did they do? Da, 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 da. But I think going back to the childhood, I think even to the point when you think, even I was first born, what was my life like? Moving on. And then actually, if you think about it, the choices of partner that a person seeks is kind of dependent on their own childhood environment they were brought up in. And that was a big one for me also. So, and I realized it's more than just healing one situation. You've got to look at the whole picture of yourself from sort of the cradle. I mean, literally to the cradle to adulthood. That's what it was, and I think it was transformational. At least understatement actually if I have to say that, but it was beyond transformational. When you heal every other wound that, and then you got your divorce, and then you heal and you heal and then you heal the divorce, and then it kind of evens out everything. If you just heal just your divorce part, but yet you've got other traumas that were before the divorce, the healing's only going to be superficial and just going to be surface level. And it would be only matter of time that everything else would resurface again, because your inner wounded child is still there.
And history repeats itself until we learn its lesson, right? Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Sahdia, for sharing that. And now, do you have any standout moments from going through this program about your own development or about, the structure of it? Were there any kind of things that you'll always remember as being beacons that shone out during this
Well,
journey?
Sally, I think the biggest moment for me, because I've always been on this personal development and learning and all. I did a lot of trauma learning before and all, even I went before I came on the course. And I think, and you'll know what I'm going to say, is the moment when I realized there was codependency. And that hit me. It was just hilarious. And I remember how you kind of subtly threw that in. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it. And you're like, after our session, you messaged me saying, I think get this book, Codependency No More. And I was thinking to myself, why? Why? And then I said, do you suggest this to everyone? That's what I said to you. Do you suggest this book to everyone? You're like, I think you said, I'm suggesting it to you. And I think that's when the penny dropped for me. And I thought, oh, damn, and that's when I realized I started taking responsibility.
Mm.
Prior to that, it was, oh, my divorce and this happened and that happened, da, 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 da. But then it was kind of like, oh gosh. And then I started, and that's when my intense reading started happening. And I ordered that book. Within 2 days, I knocked it out, underlining. And I just said to you, Sally, that's me. And I think that was the moment. I think when you made me realize that I had to take responsibility in certain decisions that I had made. Do you know what, Sally? There was just this mountain of weight that just came off my back,
Mm.
because prior to that, I felt really, really, what's the word? I felt really hopeless.
Yeah.
I felt really hopeless that why was this destined for me? I'm a good person. I'm sort of out there in the community. I help people. Why is this happening to me? And that is actually one of the profound moment in the whole entire course. And if for somebody, it's probably like, but you didn't know, but I genuinely didn't realize. I could read and I can pick on everybody else. I can see, even in my line of work, I can say to somebody, you're codependent. I just didn't know myself that I was. And I think that was one of the moments I thought, wow. And that made me realize and go deeper into my own looking at myself. And that then
Beautiful.
also knock-on effect on back to my childhood. Why was it like this? Because my family situation was such, I became a codependent. I was desperately seeking validation. Knock, 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 whatever. Bang, found a partner who was exactly like, gave me the same environment as I was growing up, the feeling. I think that was a very, very profound moment for me.
And
And
I just want to speak to one part of that before we miss
yep,
that moment, because you're quite right. And the power for anybody healing from a divorce, a breakup, a toxic relationship, you know, whatever it is that they're going through, the key, as you've said, is to find the part for which you can take radical responsibility. Because otherwise, we're just the victim. You know,
mm,
if it's all that he did this or she did that, they were unfaithful, they're this, they're the other. Well, then what? We can't go anywhere with that, can we? There's no power, there's no movement, no wriggle room. And so I love that. And that for you, it happened to be the codependent key unlocked a place where you could look inside. Because, of course, we can change ourselves, can't we? We can work on ourselves and improve ourselves. If we're just stuck the victim of someone else, there's no movement available there.
there's no growth. And I think that's the
Mm,
main thing. We need growth. And in order to be, if we, when we go through a divorce, we're in a dark hole. And we're in a dark hole and we think we can't get out. And I remember my, up to about 6 months, I was in this dark hole. Now, I knew I had to do something about it. And I thought, if I just succumb to the pains of life and divorce, I'm not going to get anywhere. So I knew I had to make the changes, but that's when I struggled, Sally. I was trying to make the changes, but yet blame. And I
mm.
couldn't, that was the wall. I couldn't jump over it because I didn't know what it was. No matter how many the amount of reading that I did, I couldn't see it for myself. I was probably in denial, really. I mean, that's one, the type of you survive it in a certain relationship, it's completely delusional and denial. Um, and I just thought, that for me was and you've got to be able to know there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you've got to be able to push yourself towards that. And a lot of part of that is, like you said, radical honesty and taking responsibility. But taking responsibility, Sally, does not mean that the other person is cleared of what they've done, and and you taught me that, which was beautiful. Because I was in conflict about that. And I
Mm.
said to you, but does that mean I'm at fault then? And you're like, no, what it means is you take responsibility, that there was a part to play in terms of why, for example, why did I stay for so long when I knew that it was a very dysfunctional, unhappy relationship? And yeah, you know, definitely, I think that was a really crucial part for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Was there a second? There was something else that was just bubbling up, and I interrupted. If it's gone,
To
it's
be honest, there were quite a lot, and I think I've somehow, and I think although it wasn't part of the course as much, but I really revisited my inner child, and I used to discuss that with you, um, and I remember really connecting with her. I used to call her Little Sad, and it was really beautiful actually because I used to journal a lot, and I remember a lot of things and saying that, with her birthdays and they weren't celebrated. So I really connected with the younger me. That was a really profound moment for me. But the other one was it the I don't know whether I should say it's going to give away part of the course, but the release. I won't give too much away, but that was profound.
the
That
trauma
was
release exercise you're
yes,
referring to. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it is profound. Yeah.
That was really the release of all the emotions and everything. I think that was really, really profound. But another thing actually, which was really profound for me, was when I was journaling. Now, when I used to journal, and you know this, I mean, first there was so what I found really fascinating, and I think it was kind of blew me away about the course and how well it's designed. And I kid you not, whoever's listening to this, it's not something I haven't been paid to say this or anything. It genuinely was so profound. Was however I used to head at the direction of my healing, it would be the next lesson was exactly that. And I had no idea that the next lesson would be exactly what and you're like, hang on, that's coming, that's coming. But I was just automatically heading towards the next session, the next session, the next, without even me knowing, because you can't, until you finish that part of the course, you can't even go on
Can't
to the
move
next
on. I
lesson.
know.
You can't move on. So I wouldn't have known that was there,
Yeah.
and that was just amazing. And that for me really nailed it, that this amazing, the course was, it's designed it's just amazing.
It is, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
masterpiece. It's very intuitive and it really does follow the natural healing process, but in a kind of more manufactured way, in a guided process. Yeah, yeah, it's an
yeah,
absolute
yeah,
masterpiece indeed. And now, also, Sadia, you at some point you shared with me that it was particularly good for you from a cultural perspective to be able to have this safe, sacred space that you could share into. Would you like to
yeah,
speak a little bit to that as
yeah,
well?
absolutely. I think coming from Asian culture and coming from the Muslim faith, unfortunately, in our culture, especially culture, not religion, religion is very supportive of divorce, very supportive, because we can sort of like, in my relationship, I was the one that ended the marriage, for example. But it's it's seen as shameful. So a lot of people, I think a lot of women, even I've spoken to, even after my course, they're really afraid to go to a course like this, because they feel really embarrassed that they've been through a divorce. But there's nothing wrong with being divorced, I would say, and it's a safe place. And I found actually some people like, but we want a therapist who's from the same culture or religion. I said, it doesn't matter. The healing work has no culture and has no religion. You heal with the right person that you connect with. And I gave him an example. I said, I felt an instant connection with yourself, and I opened myself in a way that I wanted to be helped by you. Now, the problem is how the women I've come across myself to not force them, but really promote them and encourage them to speak. So a lot of people may go through a divorce, they don't talk about it. They carry this heavy pain. I know somebody was divorced for 12 years, and she, on every time I talk to her, it's like day one,
Yeah.
hasn't healed, and honestly, I encourage, especially women from our community, to come and speak in a safe space. You know, it doesn't really matter if somebody's not because there's no religion. We don't talk about religion here. There's nobody, we don't come from any perspective, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Sikhism, there's no religion. It's just somebody here to heal you. And I think it's important that this tool is accessed because it's great and it's divine healing.
Mm,
I would say it's divine healing, and I honestly encourage it.
beautiful. Thank you, Sadia. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We sort of in Western culture have this idea that that healing is time. Time heals all wounds, and that somehow time will take care of it. But we say the opposite, don't we? At Naked Recovery, we're very much like, no, time just sort of allows the wound to get more and more suppressed and buried and hidden, but actually it's still running your life, like your friend there, 12 years on.
Absolutely. I
It needs a
think,
process. We need to
yeah,
actually allow certain things need to come out and be witnessed and released. Other things need to be cognitively understood, recontextualized. The story needs to be told for the wound to heal somewhat. Radical responsibility needs to be taken, as we've discussed.
when you said
Forgiveness to be
about
found.
when you said about the story to be, I remember my session with you when I read my story to you, and that was really profound as well, actually, Sally, where I read my story. Because what it is, sometimes we can't talk to everyone about this. Um, and having this space, somebody without any judgment and who's open, who wants to listen and acknowledge and witness your pain, it's really healing, really healing. And it's really important, because sometimes, like I said, I'm re-emphasizing this point again. We can't always talk to people about this, especially when they're not trained. So imagine you talk to somebody who's completely broken, not broken in a negative, or broken as in sort of um, broken-hearted, or their spirits have broken and what their partners put them through. And somebody said, well, I told you to leave, didn't I? You didn't leave, did you? And at that moment, that's not healing. You think there's another wound to the heart. And then, but if you speak to somebody who's trained, they can completely understand and say, I understand. I understand. And suddenly you just think, thank you. Thank you for understanding.
Yeah. It takes the isolation and the aloneness out of
Yeah.
the scenario, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you'll probably remember, as part of the program, we issue weirdness passes. You
Yeah.
remember this? Yeah. For this exact reason, because actually people lose their minds over breakups and divorce somehow. You
Yeah.
know, people respond entirely differently to had your partner died, for example. You'd have your entire community running around, bringing food, taking care. You'd be allowed to grieve, and somehow things don't go like that when it's a breakup or a divorce. Everybody has different reactions and responses, and
I think it's not which one is sort of more worse for the person, but having death of a relationship when that person's still walking around, you know, um, it's really difficult. But at the same time, when you begin to understand yourself, you know, um, and like you said, it's very lonely when you go through it, because you'll ask people ask you for the first few weeks, are you all right? Are you all right? Then after that, it's gone. People are back to their own work, and you are there dealing with your own emotion. And the emotions are so, they can be so erratic. One day you're feeling fine, the next day you just think, oh my God, how am I going to cope with this? And just having, and the beauty of this course is, because ours went a bit longer because I needed some time to, um, you know, get past certain lessons. But having somebody there, sort of block period of time, it's amazing. And I remember doing the course that I was doing, and I was thinking, I'm going to miss Sally. Like, I'm going to miss this course, because
yeah.
you've got somebody who's paying so much attention to your life, and
Well, I mean, I've heard from others, and was my experience when I did the program initially, and I'm interested in if this was so for you. But it isn't actually even just the once a week. Yes, there's this hour, lovely sacred space once a week where we get to just focus on you and what's going on. But I find you also end up with an inner dialogue at other times outside of that session, kind of imaginarily speaking with the therapist, with the
oh
coach,
yeah, yeah,
like imagining, how would that one land if I was to share this? Plus, you're in the online program every day, inputting and updating your thoughts and your progress,
yeah, yeah.
and it kind of feels a bit more 24/7 actually, even though
It
the
does,
actual physical
it
space
does,
is just 1 hour
yeah.
a week.
It does. And I remember actually just thinking back now, I would, when I was at work, and if I was just having such a like anxiety about something or whatever, I'd say, I'll message you, said I'm feeling really anxious and then whatever. And you're like, that's fine, don't worry. And, we'll be looking at that tomorrow lesson and, all of that. And I think it was just, I honestly cannot say the way this course was designed. I can only say for myself, it was amazing. And I honestly, you know, can say this. I didn't think that I was going to come out of it. I genuinely, because you think once you're in that black hole in the deep, you just don't see it. And I think it was light at the end of the tunnel. Genuinely, it
Feel
was
it can feel really permanent, can't it? When we're in the black hole, when we and again, this is human nature across the board, regardless of the trauma, is that we have that feeling of being utterly stuck. You know,
yeah,
stuck in your feelings, stuck in the black holes, stuck in repetitive patterns, behaviors. There's the stuckness, really feels permanent. And actually, it doesn't have to be permanent, does it? It's, you know,
yeah.
just working that process. And then, as you say, the light appears at the end of the tunnel.
Just, I mean, just before we started recording, actually, I was just telling you a little about my little wobble that I had. And when you were just saying now about not being permanent, throughout the course, what I learned is just sit with it. It
Mm.
will pass, you know. And that's something that you taught me was if I'm feeling something, you said sit with it. Where is it? What color is it? What shape is it? What does it look like? Sit until it passes. It will pass. And I was just telling you some little wobble that I had just regarding my ex about something, and I just spoke, and again, it took me a few days for it just to pass,
Yeah.
and it's like while I was on the course, it was just like an emotional muscle that was being trained, and now I can access that
Yeah.
when I'm in a situation. That's what I mean when I talk about transformational.
Yes.
It gives you tools to be able to handle it even after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tools for life. Absolutely. Yeah. A whole new framework for understanding your own internal world, the things that trigger you and why, old past wounds and how they show up in the present moment. And of course, this is applicable in the workplace, in your family, and you know, with your friendship groups. It doesn't have to be just about recovering from the ex, you know.
yeah. It could be anything, anything. And I think I was about to say something. Actually, I lost my trail of thought, and that was sorry. We may have to cut this part out. Forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, please cut this out. You can carry on now.
I think we've covered a lot of ground actually, Sadia. I'm really happy.
Yeah,
I think we've covered all the important points that I would want someone else to hear.
yeah.
If I'm not sure about whether to write to us or not write to us, are there any just final thoughts that you
There is actually, I was just thinking it was just a message to anybody who's listening to this, and that would be, it's going to be okay, and I promise you, it's going to be okay. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. It may seem that it's not, but honestly, it is. And if you can get support and help from the likes of Sally and the team, that will just really aid your journey and it will be transformational. And we have to always remember that healing is our responsibility.
Mm.
And there's nobody else that's going to do the healing work. And if truth be told, actually, I remember my point now. This is what I was going to say was in this journey, you will realize, like I've realized, maybe it was never about them.
profound?
It was never about them. It was about our journey. And that's something that I've learned. And, but when somebody's going through something, it may not seem like it, but I tell you, when I got in touch with Sally, I was in a terrible way. And you're probably in that state of a lot of pain and everything, but it will get better. And I would honestly say, get the support. And sometimes investments that we make for ourselves, they go a long way.
Mm. That's really beautiful, Sadia. Thank you. And thank you so much for really putting your all into it as well. You know, I just want to say that publicly on camera that you really took it on, super honest, super open. Whenever you were stuck, it was shared and you reached out and you really, you know, used up every gram of available wisdom, knowledge, and power in the program. So
Because
good for
I
you.
really, really I wanted to heal, and I was sick of being in a rut. And like I said to you, it was my responsibility. I knew I wanted this, and I was going to do it. And I think, and having you by my side throughout the course when I went through it, it just aided my journey in a very organic, healthy way. And I would like to thank you, Sally, and the team for putting a course like this together. And and I think I genuinely find it a very spiritual course. I'm a very spiritual person myself, and I find it very spiritual to go in and remove the layers of your own self, to look deep inside. And I think the team, Adele, yourself, all the rest of the team have done a phenomenal job. So absolutely well done to you guys as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sahdia. I really appreciate your time.
Thank
Let's
you,
stop.
Sally.